When I wake up, no makeup, grinning out at the world with hesitation. Underneath is a product of the week, hypothetical disease, and I'm better off dancing to the beat. You're still calling this defeat as I'm stepping into reach of a helping hand at a dark time. There's a war crime, such a war crime at a dark time.
Welcome back, everyone, to Fueled by Coffee Podcast, Season 4. My name is Matt. I'm your host. Pete is joining us once again. Pete, welcome back. We are happy to have you. Last time Pete was on, we were talking about Blink-182 for 4 episodes straight. Go check those episodes out. They're a lot of fun. And today we're going to be talking about more music, and then we're going to get into some freelancing and work talk. So, Pete, welcome back.
Dude, I got my Fetus Matt mug today.
Hell yeah.
No coffee in it because it is later in the day and I already had my 3 cups, but I do want to let you know that I drank out of your fetus cup today in preparation for this.
Word, that's awesome. And for those who don't know, we do have merch. If you check us out through social media on Facebook and Instagram, you can buy our merch through the links on our page. We also have an email newsletter that's been a lot of fun to work on. Sign up for that as well. Give us a follow here on SoundCloud and check out all of our other episodes. There's something for everyone, especially this season. Today, we're drinking coffee as always. So this was almost a Fueled by Coffee first. I almost did just a black coffee today because I don't mind black coffee. I'm once again back to the New England Coffee Company Blueberry Cobbler because I don't have a neutral creamer really right now. I try and put like a vanilla in this and I'm out of that. So I took a sip of it black and it was disgusting. I think it's just a type of coffee because I've had really good black coffee before. So I put a little bit of that like sweet cream, whatever, Cold Stone. It's not my favorite creamer, but it's getting the job done. So shout out New England Coffee Company. Once again, one time of many times we're having the Blueberry Cobbler. So we're going to jump right in today. Lots of stuff to cover, maybe a more opinionated episode, our thoughts, our opinions, but hopefully there's someone out there who agrees with us and makes us feel like we're a little bit less insane than we make ourselves feel.
I should have prepared some stats for this so I could back up my claims, but I didn't. So there are stats out there, I'm sure, for what we're going to talk about, but
yeah.
We'll have to send the readers or the viewers or the listeners, whatever form of Fueled by Coffee you take in, you're going to have to go find the facts yourself.
Yeah, for sure. But thanks again, Pete, for coming on. I know this
Thanks
was
for having me, man.
It was like a short notice session. For those who, it was funny, I was thinking about it today. You're kind of like a part-time co-host here at the podcast because you're on so frequently.
Hey, man, I embraced the role, and it's the perfect bridge between like recurring guest and co-host, where it's like my schedule's too wild to commit to co-hosting, but anytime that I'm down, you can rip me in for a good episode because I love being part of it and watching it grow and watching it brew into a fresh, delicious cup of podcast.
For sure.
Absolutely. And add some extra cheese in there for that one. Thank you. I'll be here all night. I'm actually just on your podcast to work on a reel for my comedy career, so just throwing them out there like darts, man,
Hell yeah. Any avenue to succeed, right?
Exactly. Any avenue that doesn't put me behind a desk typing, even though I do that.
Yeah, for sure. But anyway, so for those who are maybe a new listener or haven't heard an episode that Pete's been on, Pete, I met him, 6 years ago, something like that, at a show when he was playing in an old band, Above the Mendoza, pop punk music. We became friends through that band, and then most recently, in the last couple of years, he started up a new band called My Cousin's Girlfriend's House. We've talked about them on multiple podcasts. We've dropped in some of their songs. Really good stuff. Highly recommend them to anyone listening that you go check out their stuff if you're a pop punk fan. We're going to do a little music catch-up because for those who don't know, I am also a musician as well. I love to make all sorts of music. I've been doing it since I was 14 years old. I'm 24 now, so we're going to talk about where My Cousin's Girlfriend's House is at, where some of my projects are at, just kind of do a little music chat, and then we'll go from there. So, Pete, what is going on? I know this episode is dropping way later than we're recording it, but what is on the horizon for My Cousin's Girlfriend's House, the summer of 2022?
So we like most bands, had some sort of difficulties during all the different lockdowns, and we put out our first EP amidst the lockout because we had started writing and recording that right before it started.
Right.
So those songs came out, and then we got to play some shows, and then we started working on new songs. But again, lockdown made it tough, so we're still working on getting those recorded. We have a couple of the singles almost ready to go. The one came out, Therapeutic Hypocrite, released already. You can stream it anywhere, see the music video. That one's a little bit cleaner in terms of like instrument sounds, a little bit of that 90s rock along with a little bit of pop punk. The next tune is going to be a single that's a little more aggressive, I would say. Not really aggressive, but more rock and roll sorts. Yeah. A little bit of Foo Fighters and Wonder Years influence there. And then we got hopefully a 7-song release, whatever you call 7 songs, coming out sometime late summer, early fall. Not going to put a solid, deadline there, but really working hard at trying to find our sound and put something out there that's, high quality, unique to a certain degree.
Yeah.
We're all going to fall under that pop punk kind of umbrella, but trying to bridge out a little bit and create something a little bit different, and continuing to try and work on like actually understanding music instead of just being like, well, I like this song by Green Day and this song by Blink, so let me take those chords and do, like trying to understand actually how to get better at songwriting. So that's kind of what's going on in MCGH camp. And then I'm just working on like playing in a band called Jet Jag, so doing some writing and guitaring there, and then trying to work on getting a little solo project started just to do as many different musical things, kind of a la yourself, getting out of just the bracket of pop punk and trying different things, and you know, doing that under my own terms, I guess.
Word. Yeah, it's definitely awesome for sure. Yeah, man, it's definitely interesting when you start trying to like kind of curate your own sound. I mean, like, see, like, not that we've ever really, I mean, I don't know, I can't speak for you, but like for myself, I've never really tried to like emulate a band like to a T. It's more so just like their sound kind of comes through my sound because it's what I'm being influenced by at the time. But I definitely, it's funny that you mentioned, because like we always come back to like Green Day and Blink, and I definitely think Therapeutic Hypocrite, I got some like, I don't want to say like, probably like early 2000s Green Day vibes, like that Warning era, you know, like with the cleaner kind of, that's kind of the vibe I got from it.
I definitely had some Third Eye Blind comparisons, which is definitely on point. I was for a while really, I like Third Eye Blind. I think they're pretty good, but
yeah.
That's kind of where it's like the new stuff is going to be a different range of trying to pull in different influences from the outside and, you know, just do a little bit different in terms of not just being like, all right, verse, chorus, pounding guitars, trying to have a little bit of versatility, but it's still going to be me, you know. And then kind of with the solo stuff I'm working on, it's a lot of from this thing we've been working on, Songfinch. I've been testing different genres, not like crazy out there, but like a little more punk, and then a little more like I had a song that kind of sounds like the Killers, just like a Killers dance kind of vibe, but rocky, I guess. So just trying a bunch of different things there and trying to use solo work to get better at my instrument. And you know the feeling when you're a guitar player and you're like, man, I watch other guitar players who look like they are one with the guitar, and I kind of want to get to that point. And I think like, you know, stretching out to other artists and stuff can also help, navigate the fretboard, if you will, differently than the my usual string of, you know, 3 chords and a couple of single leads on top. But
yeah, for sure. It's definitely interesting, I think, like for myself to see how I've kind of shifted the way I play guitar, because like it used to just be like as a teenager and like in, you know, maybe even 5 years ago when I was doing the Union Coffee Break thing, it was just like, you know, slamming on some chords, put some harmonics over it, because that's what Tom DeLonge did. That's not why I did it, but it's just because that's how I wrote songs at the time. And now it's like I don't know what exactly I'll have put out by the time this episode drops, but like the one Met single, for those who don't know, that's like my music project, one of my main music projects right now. I dropped Lean on Me, and it has like this like John Mayer solo in it. And it was at the time I wrote the song, John Mayer had just dropped his album Sob Rock, and I was listening to it a lot, and I was really digging it. And one day, I don't know what I was doing on the computer, but I just kind of picked up my acoustic and I started playing the 3 chords, and I was like, this is really cool. And I wrote the lyrics and the whole song in like probably half an hour sitting there with my guitar. And then like I knew I wanted to put a solo in it, and it's just interesting to see like I'm not a shredder by any means, but the fact that I sat down and I was like, all right, I'm going to try and like get into John Mayer's head and see like what would John Mayer do on this track, you know. It's something and then like the other elements I have going too, like I had on like the left ear and the right ear, I had these like leads. I like turned the tone knob on my guitar all the way down, so it was just like really like dark and muddy, and I put a shit ton of reverb on it and kind of had this almost like angelic, like I don't know, like swell underneath the solo. Go listen to the song if you haven't listened to it already, but there's like a lot going on there that I wouldn't have done 5 years ago or 10 years ago when I was a teenager writing music, you know, when it was just like hard and fast and, you know.
Yeah, dude, that's called progression. You're killing
Yeah.
it. But it's like it is interesting. Like right now, I'm trying to get better at analyzing other songs, especially out of the genre, and like picking parts out of a song. And it's like it can get a little bit overwhelming. I think it's like I explain it as a musician, as myself, who is like mediocre at all the instruments. I can't get myself to focus on one.
Right.
So it's like I'll be like, all right, this listen, I want to just focus on the lyrics, and then the goddamn drum part will catch my attention, and I'll go off on a daydream about the drums for the entire song. Be like, damn, I didn't pick up a word. So it's like trying to get better at focusing. I guess it's just so like instead of having it have to be like, oh, I'm waiting for that spark of inspiration to write this great song, and you understand that it's about writing songs and continuing consistently writing, and then you're going to have like the best ones are going to pop out. Just you're going to have duds, but trying to like not just rely so much on like, all right, I need a spark to come, and if it doesn't, I'm not going to have a song.
Yeah, it's definitely it can definitely be frustrating. I felt like a couple weeks ago, I felt like I kind of like forgot, or even like in the last few months, I kind of really haven't touched my guitars. I just haven't had like the itch to, or hadn't had the itch to rather. And every time I did, it just sounded like shit. And I was like, man, fuck this. I'm tired of like, wow, that sounds really depressing. But yeah, I was like, screw this. Like, I can't write music anymore. And like, I'll get into these funks and these fogs where like, I just can't do it. And then the one day, I think I texted you, I was like, bro, I have this guitar riff in my head and I can't get it out of my head onto my guitar. And it took me like, I figured out what it was, but I couldn't play it as fast as I was playing it in my head. And I have this weird thing where sometimes if I'm either trying to learn a song or if I'm trying to like teach myself a part that I want to write, I can't play it the first day. And I'm like, fuck, I suck so bad. But then like, I'll jump in, I'll like walk away from it for like 2 days, 3 days, and when I come back, I can just automatically do it. Like it's this weird thing I have. I don't know. And then I did it. I don't know if the song will be out by the time this drops. I hope so. I'm trying to do like a little EP before I move. Yeah, for those who don't know, we're recording this like 5 months in advance. I'm probably in Colorado by the time this drops. But yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. Writing music is hard sometimes. Being a musician,
it's funny because I'm like the opposite, where it's like I'll get this lead and I have to lay it down, whether it's perfect or not, just to like remember it. I have to lay it down, and then like if I don't commit to that song being a song within a week, it's like, oh, I could lose it and come back like 3 months later and be like, I can't remember how to play that lead.
Yeah,
I'm either gonna have to really sit down and try and remember or write a new one. So it's like,
yeah, it's definitely a grind. Yeah, I guess as far as my projects go, so like for Met, I released Emo Days. Hell, when did I release it? Was that like last summer? I can't even remember. Sometime around.
Was it that long ago? Maybe August? Did you drop it in August?
Yeah, maybe like last August or something. I put out the EP, and then like I had started writing other songs for the next EP. It was going to be like an EP or a mini album, and then like as I've been working on them, I'm just kind of like, I don't know, it's not that I'm not feeling them, but I'm getting sick of working on them. Or like some, I record this awesome song and I know how I want the lyrics to go, but I can't sing them in the key of the song, and I don't want to re-record everything. So like I've gotten to the point. That is
my biggest thing, man.
Yeah.
Like when you write a song and then you go to sing it and you're like, shit, this is not really in my range. And with this song, Finch, it's almost every song I find myself like, because I write and I'm humming a step down, and then I go to sing it and I'm like, well, this sounds like shit if I sing it in the low key, but it sounds like shit if I sing it in the high key.
Yeah.
So I usually just painfully sing it in the high key, but that's like the hardest part is like one, staying in your register, because like we're all, adventurous and we want to be better than we are. So we write things thinking, oh, I'll be able to sing that. It's like, no, but it's also just frustrating trying to build the range, because it's like, I just want to be there, but you have to really, again, put in the work. That's the thing that I found in like really trying to get better at music is like that the punk rock mindset is awesome, but practicing and like actually working on shit helps you get better, which I hate, but like it is what it is.
Yeah, It's definitely sucky, and like, well, like the song that I'm talking about is so cool. It's called City Song, and I wrote it about like taking Kayla to Philly for the first time last summer, and like it's this awesome, like, oh man, it almost sounds, I was drawing influence from like Alkaline Trio, their song Sadie. There's like this like solo bridge section. I was kind of like trying to write my own version of that, but then like the song, it like starts out acoustic, and then it comes in with this like, maybe I'll have dropped it by the time this comes out and I'll have to put it in here. But yeah, it's like this got this like boppy indie vibe, and as the song progresses, every chorus it gets heavier, and then at the end it's like I wanted to be almost like screaming the chorus. And then when I tried to do it, because I haven't sung much, like with doing Halo and the lo-fi stuff, that doesn't really require me to sing. So like my voice is not in singing shape, and it sounds like absolute shit. And then like even trying to sing in like a lower register just doesn't sound energetic enough, so I'm like, I don't know what to do with it. But yeah, so that Met project, I'm kind of just dropping songs as singles, or I have dropped songs as singles. I don't know, man. The Met thing, like it's sucky because I love writing music on my guitar and like with drums and everything, but the singing is where it always gets me. I don't.
Yeah, it's just a tough mountain to climb. One, hearing your own voice, and like, it's one thing to get better at guitar and work on guitar and be like, it's frustrating that I suck, but if I'm consistent, I see progress. Whereas singing, it's like you have to hear your shitty voice every day, practicing to try and get better. And like, it's not a fast process. So it can be really debilitating to be like, all right, we're on day, 7, and my voice still sounds like ass. And, my neighbors probably want me to stop singing. And like, I kind of do too, but like, it's the only way you're going to get better.
Yeah.
Because it's that's just how I feel like a lot of punk rock bands that, just get up there and go at it. They don't spend too much time working on their voice, but like maybe they do, because I've spent time working on my voice and can't quite get there. But I think it's just, continuing to put in the work and being patient.
Yeah. There's this great clip before we move on. There's this great clip of Mac DeMarco. He is awesome. I look up to him because like he records all his stuff on his own. Like if you look at his first album and compare it to his most recent album, he has learned like so much about recording. And I kind of like see myself in him because I mean he's way bigger than I'll ever be, honestly. And he actually has people that want to play with him, but that's beside the point. But he has this clip of him recording his album. I think it was Salad Days, and he was like showing people, like, because he does everything on tape and like with analog like mixers and stuff, and he was muting all the tracks. He's like, oh, here's the drums, here's the guitar. He goes, oh, and here's the voice, and then he like solos the voice, and he's like, just vocals, like disgusting. It's so like someone as big as Mac DeMarco even hates his own voice. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think most people who aren't Beyonce probably don't like their voice as much as other people like it.
Yeah, for sure. My other project, Halo, it's like lo-fi instrumental stuff. It's a lot of fun.
Shit,
dude.
That is my stuff that I just throw on when I need to focus.
Yeah, if you're a fan of lo-fi or beats or just instrumental, easy listening stuff, go check it out. I make it all on FL Studio on a tablet. So yeah, it's one of those things like making songs in a box. Like I have so many resources to work with, and it's like, how can I make this sound as cool as possible? But I've been slacking. I put out I've just been kind of dropping singles in the last year. I put out an album the beginning of 2021, and I have other material I've been accumulating since then, and I've just been slacking on finishing it. Like, it's pretty much all finished. I just need to finalize the mixes, and there's a couple songs that need samples that I'm trying to work in or find on the internet here or there. It's called Spicy Goals. SPICEY. Spicy. Take it to the effing bank. I don't know. It's called Spicy Goals. It's supposed to be like, whereas the first Halo release is like a little more is a little more like nostalgic and kind of like, I don't know, cute, maybe sad sounding. This one is more like, I was trying to go for more of like an edgy, like GTA Vice City cocaine dealer vibe. I don't know.
I'm interested to hear that.
Yeah.
That's a big change from my loving Halo.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll be able to study with your spicy goals, but no, I'm excited to hear it.
Yeah, for sure. I'm trying to get it out this summer sometime. I just got to stop slacking, man. It's just sucky because like I email.
I mean, you got a lot going on too. It's always tough when, you know, life gets in the way. It's easy in theory to be like, oh, I'm going to release an album for each of my 3 projects and also do this podcast and also move to Colorado. And then you got to be like, oh, maybe something's going to have to hit the back burner for a minute at least.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so lots of music. Go check out My Cousin's Girlfriend's House, Halo, and Met on Spotify and SoundCloud and wherever you can stream music. Guarantee you'll find something you'll like. But let's jump into, I guess the whole reason why we decided to do this episode was Pete and I have been talking for months about freelance work. Pete has done various, I don't want to say various, but you've done multiple different types of freelance work to try and earn an income. And I've tried to get into it, haven't done it successfully yet, but it's something I'm always going to, I think, shoot for because I'm getting really sick of corporate America. And I think that's kind of a common thing you and I have shared. It's just, the control, the, I don't want to say drama, but for lack of a better term, drama, like the shadiness, like there's a lot of things in like the corporate world, the retail world, the business world that I think.
I was going to say, I use the term corporate a lot, but I think it's more just business because even small businesses, startups, places like that aren't really completely corporatized, but operate in, official business manner, if you will. But, just kind of like that whole world really, I don't fit into, I don't believe.
Yeah, it's tough, like when I'm going to go out on a limb here. I've never really told anyone but Kayla this, I don't think. But I just have always had this feeling like I go to work every day since I've been 18. I've gone, well, not every day, but like since I was 18 and I graduated high school, I've had a job. I've gone to work. I've not really had a job I loved yet, like that I've been like, damn, I don't mind going to work every day. But I've always had this feeling like I was put on this earth to do something greater, or just to do something that's like unorthodox, not just a 7 to 3, a 9 to 5, go sit at a desk, go sell something, I feel like I've been put here and I have this creative mind in me that I'm meant to do something like writing poetry or writing music or doing this podcast. Like I feel like I was put here to do something that not everyone can do. A lot of people can go sit at a desk for 8 or 10 hours and just be content with that and take their pay home and just survive. But like, where's the fun in that? Where's the life in that? And I kind of blame Bukowski and Kerouac and all those like authors for kind of getting me into that mindset. But I just don't feel like I fit the mold. And I'm sure you feel the same way. You just said, you don't fit into that kind of culture.
Yeah, and that's kind of, I wouldn't even say striving to achieve something great or unique, just not feeling pressure to do something for the sake of, well, this is what you do. It's like, I understand we need to make a living. I understand you need to pay your bills and stuff, but it's like, I just can't get on board with 5 days a week of working, a job that I just don't think I could find a job where I'm like, this is something that I can commit to enjoying in the world that we speak of like business and corporate and stuff like that. But it's like you work 5 days a week and like to prepare for work and then cool down from work, you really don't have much else to do on that day, especially when you got to like make dinner and stuff.
Yeah.
So you have 2 days of freedom for every 7 days, but on those 2 days, you're either fighting to relax or like trying to get all the stuff done that you want to get done throughout the week that you didn't get done. And it's like, at what point is it at what point is it you're not living anymore? But I guess that's all again in, context. You could love your job and love not doing anything else but working and watching Netflix. But like, to me, it's like, there's so many other things to do. And like, just the headspace that being in that situation puts me into is like so not good. And I'm fortunate to be able to say that, because a lot of people aren't able to choose not to be in that. Like, it's like you got to work 2 jobs just to pay your rent. So, I always have to take it into perspective. But I think that, the difference between people who are cool with doing that and people who aren't, like ourselves, is like we're willing to put in whatever it takes to get out of that. And, at times we have to shift our goals, but like at the end of the day, the goal is to do something that brings us, I guess, fulfillment and happiness, right?
Right, absolutely. And I think a lot of people in the last couple of years, with the whole COVID thing, as much as I hate how it's continuously said, but like that totally changed the game and like shifted the world as we know it. And a lot of people, there's this whole, you see it all over. I hate the news, I hate politics, but you see this whole like the great resignation, and there's been this huge shift to people quitting their jobs because they're sick of the bullshit. They're sick of not making enough money to do the shitty work that they do, or to do the amount of work that they do. There's that, and B, there is that like wanting to do something that brings people fulfillment. And so there's been this huge wave of resignations, and some of that has been a shift to freelance work, because people being home for however long, 6, 9, 12 months during that initial year or whatever of COVID, a lot of people worked from home, and they saw how beneficial it was to their mental health and maybe even their physical health. But yeah, it's definitely important, I think, to do work you love. I've talked about it many times on the podcast. Like, when I was in warehousing, I was miserable. Like, the only reason why I don't even want to say loved, I enjoyed working at Peapod is because I had friends. Once I got to that next level of warehousing where I was on my own and it was just hit your rate and go home, like I was miserable. And that's why I got into baking. And it's even shitty. Like, the work I do with baking can be rewarding, but the circumstances of it, whether it's the people or just there's so many factors that can make a day shitty. And when it's like, no job's going to be perfect. And I know that. And I hate when people are like, well, you're just complaining, or, oh, just go get a new job. But it's like, it's not that I don't
all jobs suck.
Yeah, it's not that I don't like the work I do, but when you have 3 or 4 different factors every single day, like totally screwing you and like making your day shitty at work, that's when it's like, this is bullshit, And I think a lot of people are kind of like trying to take action, and kind of find something that they enjoy doing now. But like with the shift to freelance work, what has that been like for you? When did you start trying to freelance? How did you start? Like, what did that look like for you?
Well, I started trying to freelance way back in 2018, I guess. So, I mean, if we really want to look at it, I was doing unpaid freelance work in terms of writing for a Philly sports blog at the end of my college, tenure in probably early 2018. And then I moved to North Carolina to work for a golf tour and ended up, writing for a Philly sports blog again, different one, just to like hone my writing and stuff. And then I found about like content writing and how there was this thing called Upwork where you could put up a portfolio and try and get one-off writing gigs. So I just started, working on that. And, the first few that I did there were lower paying than I would want to take for a project, but I got 5-star reviews. And this was, the early days of Upwork. So it was like before there was so much competition and so many restrictions. So I was really fortunate to get in on that level and kind of establish myself there. And that was my first real freelancing gig, as well as I was working for a minor league baseball team doing video. So it's like that was the first stage of my life where I had 3 different sources of income paying the bills. And that kind of, in a weird way, paved the way, because I actually went to a full-time job and then was like, I was trying to do full-time and freelancing, and there just wasn't, and doing music and all this stuff. It was like, there wasn't enough time in the day, and it came down to priorities. And I was like, I can find a way to scrape up enough money doing a bunch of freelancing that I can do music and do creative things. So that's kind of when April of 2021, I guess, was when I made the leap to full-time freelancing.
Word. That's where I'm kind of at. I'm trying to find, because I've done the full-time job thing and it just isn't for me. It's funny, I just posted a poem on my poetry Instagram. You can go follow it at dsb.poetry on Instagram. I just posted a poem about like how for me it like feels like 40, and I know there's people that work 50, 60, 65 hours a week, and like all the power to them, but 40 hours to me felt like it was like sucking the life out of me, because I didn't have that balance to work on music, to work on the podcast, to like have a balance between work and life. And you know, so that's kind of where I'm at. I would like to like have a job that I go to like part-time, and then like do the rest of my work either freelancing or like whether it's through Songfinch, like writing songs, or doing the voiceovers. I tried to get into Upwork doing voiceovers in the fall of 2021, I believe it was. And it's tough, man. Like that's the one thing is like you go into it, and I think a lot of people will go into it being hopeful. I wrote up a really good like a cover letter with my experience, trying to sell myself. I recorded some samples for a bunch of different scenarios that I was seeing on Upwork, and I would apply every day. I'd go through on my lunch break, I'd go through after I got home, and like it's hard to even get work, you know. It's really tough.
Yeah, and the platform's changed a little bit over time. Like they used to have a flat, you know, you apply for a job and they give you like credits to apply for jobs, and it's like every job was 3 credits.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like every job is 1 credit, but you have the option to spend more credits to show up earlier in the feed. So it's like, is it a game of who's the best applicant, or is it a game of who's going to, you know, spend the most credits to get their resume up to somebody who needs to hire quickly? So it's a little more difficult in that sense now. And definitely Upwork, I've drifted off to other websites and other forms of looking for freelance work, because it is I mean, whatever you're going to do freelancing, part of your commitment is to applying to gigs. Unless you land one that's steady, it's like that's part of your job, is just putting applications out there and you know, accepting that as what it is.
Yeah. Have you had any success with Fiverr at all, or is that kind of similar to Upwork?
I think it's similar to Upwork. I've never even tried it because, like, I don't know. It just doesn't. It seems more. I think even more difficult than Upwork really to get started in, and like especially for writing, it seems more graphic design. You know.
Yeah.
Software IT based versus Upwork. At least Upwork I found is pretty much anything, but I'm able to find all of my content writing jobs through that.
Word.
But also there's like the option to pitch articles to different places, or like cold email. Like there's so many different ways to try and get work. It's a matter of putting in the effort to do that. And like I was fortunate with Upwork that I didn't have to do a ton of other sourcing for jobs. And even with like Songfinch, they came to me, and like I've had referrals from other people. So it's like you just kind of find your work where you can find it, but also, you know, you have to work hard to get there.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's just part of the grind. It's funny when I just remembered. So you mentioned about doing the video for the minor league baseball team. And I think it was you that suggested to me when I get out to Colorado to try and, because I think I said something about like I would love to be like the guy that announces the names.
The PA announcer.
Yeah, like when
dude.
guys come up to bat and they're announcing the lineups, and you were like, dude, you should see if there's a minor league team out there or whatever. And I'm thinking about shooting an email out to the Vibes. It's the AAA team for the Rockies. I would just to see, or even see if I can just get in there and learn stuff, you know? Like,
yeah, for sure. I mean, the guy down in Greensboro, when I was in Greensboro, who was doing the PA, was a freelance voiceover person in his free time, like when he wasn't doing baseball. So it was like pretty cool gig if you can land it. And I actually got in at the Greensboro Grasshoppers by emailing the video production manager and just asking like, hey, can I come shadow what you do? Because like I'm interested in getting more into video. And he emailed back and was like, you want to work as like game day camera crew? And I was like, hell yeah. Because like I had no friends. I mean, I had a few friends there really, but not a ton of friends, and like ended up just working to fill all my time, which was both good and bad. But like that is how I got in, essentially, was being forced into a situation where I was willing to do that.
Yeah, for sure. Would you say it was a situation that you were maybe a little bit uncomfortable and it kind of helped you to grow, or it forced you to grow in a way?
Totally. Being in North Carolina for like, as much as I didn't like it at times, it wasn't as bad as I made it out to be at the time. Like in hindsight, I was traveling to golf courses and doing freelance work in the office while I, was doing my full-time job, and then going to watch minor league baseball and get paid to do so. So like, not a bad gig, but really being thrust into North Carolina with, I'm not a social person unless I'm around people that I know. So it was incredibly difficult, but like it forced me to go out there and take chances and, really work on being, I guess, just like a stronger individual and more willing to like be myself instead of relying on other people I know to make me feel comfortable.
Hell yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. It's funny. That was a big theme on the first episode of this season. Aaron and I did the big life changes. We talked a lot about, because there's a lot that's changing and changed in my life this summer. So it's like, talking about, you have to learn. Aaron is so famously in my head is saying, you have to learn how to become comfortable being uncomfortable, because it's like one of the biggest ways you grow is to get yourself into those situations. So it's kind of, I think, an overarching theme this season on the podcast is just becoming uncomfortable so that you can grow,
Yeah, it definitely is. That's the best. Honestly, it's the best way to put it. Is like if you're sitting in a comfort zone, that means you're not getting to where you need to be.
Mm-hmm.
Even for example, musically, it's like sitting in that comfort zone of 3 chords, same song recycled. It's like unless you really challenge yourself and get over it, like you sound like shit practicing your guitar like scales or trying to learn lead parts, or like it's physically painful to hear it, but that physical pain will ultimately be worth it when you can shred and you're like, damn, remember when I sucked? And like I've been working at it for like 2 years now, really. And like to say that I'm working at it is not fair, because like I go through phases of practicing consistently and it's really hard to get in these 100. Like for example, it's super easy to be like, well, if I had just been practicing consistently for these past 3 years, I would be great. But instead it was like, oh, there was a month where I practiced consistently and then had a bunch of gigs, didn't have as much time to practice, but was still playing. But like it's weird with music and really with anything, if you don't focus on improving, you'll fall back right into those habits you had. So like for example, with guitar, I'll play a live show and I fall right back into holding the guitar as tight as possible and like not having my finger in the right place at all and just relying on distortion to cover up the mistakes. So that's not making you better. Whereas when you sit down and you really practice trying to get better, you actually do get better. You just suck for the good portion of it.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
If that makes sense. That was not eloquently worded. But
no, it was good. It's good, man. So like going along with the whole freelancing thing, I was trying to think of like the pros in my mind behind freelancing. And, we kind of touched on it as like you're the boss of your own time. You are your own boss with the exception of the client you're working with, because you are kind of at their mercy. You want to give them a product, whether it's a voiceover or a song or like an article or a written piece or whatever. You want to give them a product that they're satisfied with, but also that you're satisfied with as well. You kind of have to bridge that gap. I also noted different tasks, right? Like you can take different freelance jobs that kind of keeps your palette of work fresh, because sometimes when you have that normal job that consistent job that you go to, it's like you do the same thing every single day, whereas with freelancing you can try and find those minute differences that maybe make one job more enjoyable than the last, perhaps.
I mean, it doesn't even have to be a minute difference. I think one of my favorite things when I'm going through the month and tallying up like what I made, how I made it, is when it's like when I have a good month of variety where it's like, oh, X amount came in from Songfinch. I had 3 studio drumming gigs that paid me for a few days. I had a photo shoot with somebody, and then I had my SEO, and then I had my writing. So it's like so many different ways to make money doing different things. Like I think that's the coolest part. And even if like you're going into a more traditional freelancing, it could be like, well, I have my coding skills and I also have my, marketing skills. So I do a little bit of, software development. And then I have one client that's more internet marketing and one web. So it's like you have options. It's all about building a tool set. Or you can go all in on one skill and one niche market, and that also works. Like that's the advice I've seen a lot for writing is like hone in on a niche. But for me, it's like I haven't found that niche in terms of what I like to write about. I think HR was something that I found it easy to write about and kind of like, not as complex. I've done some writing for like construction companies and stuff where it's like, it's tough to write that and feel confident that you're providing authoritative information. But it's just like, I like to write different styles, different industries, different formats. And then I think like my favorite one is writing blogs for something that I find some sort of enjoyment. So like,
right.
I had an assignment to write 2 blogs for a music licensing company, and that was pretty interesting. Like wrote one on Foley sound and wrote one on like, I think it was actually how to promote your band. So it was like kind of had some insight there, but finding the right places and the right work that actually interest you enough that you're not like, I need to get this freelance out of the way so I could do it. I want to do, like, for example, my one SEO client right now is a photographer. So I love writing those. Right now I just do like research and content outlines, but I'm going to start actually writing content for them. And it's really interesting because I like photography and it's kind of like inspiring me to try and put myself out there as a photographer. But, that I'll toss it back to you, but I have cons based on that as well.
Right. Yeah. The only other pro I had listed, which we had touched on, is you have more freedom with your time. You can knock out the work you need to do to make that money, and then you have that time to pursue other outlets. That was my only other pro. So it was mainly just freedom.
Did you have ability to work at different times, or is that kind of?
That's kind of like with the freedom of time. Like you can work when you want. You're your own boss. You set your own schedule. That type of thing.
Because I think that's another one of my favorite. Where it's like especially when you get a good client, like my photographer client is a great client, and he just knows it's going to get in by the end of the week, and the end of the week means Sunday at 11:59 p.m. So like, if I get on a roll doing music stuff early in the week and I have to work Sunday morning to get my stuff done, like I don't mind that. I get up early every day. And if Sunday is the day that I have to put 2 hours of work in before I chill, like that's so much better than putting in an extra 2 hours during the week and burning yourself down even further.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Let's hop over to some cons now. I have 3 listed that I could really think of. So one, and I don't know if this isn't a con for me, but for some people it might be. I said you need to be a self-starter. You kind of got to be able to motivate yourself to like, I got to get on the computer, I have deadlines to meet, or I got to go, as you said, chase those jobs, be constantly applying. Otherwise, you're going to get nowhere and you're going to build a shitty reputation for yourself. Like for someone like me or someone like you, like we want to pursue that work. We want to, be in that unorthodox field of people per se. But for other people, maybe you're a huge procrastinator. Maybe you're maybe you're just not like motivated to go find your work. I could see that being a con for some people.
Yeah. I mean, even for people like us, it can be a con because getting yourself hyped to do work that's not directly related to what you really want to do. It's like you have to do the abstract form of thinking and be like, all right, this is how I'm going to pay to make the next music video, or this is how I'm able to go to the studio tomorrow because I'm working this flexible schedule. Otherwise it's like same thing where you're like, son of a gun, like I have that construction writing piece due Friday. I have a lot of free time between Wednesday and Friday, but I just don't want to do it. It's like that's when it is difficult, and you just have to force yourself, and it can be tough. It really can.
Yeah. The other one I had written down was that, and we've touched on it, it's hard to start out. It's kind of hard to get those wheels turning to get that first job. Like I said, I remember when I was sitting in Colorado, I was like, and I realized, like, I don't want to go back to Pennsylvania. I don't want to go back to my baking job at Wegmans. That's when I was like, all right, I'm going to start. I was asking you, and I was like, all right, I'm going to start doing this freelance voiceover shit. And like I said, I wrote out some really good cover letters, I did some really good samples. I was applying every day, if not every other day, for like months. And then it got to the point like where I wasn't even getting hits on any jobs. Like I was applying and no one was even contacting me. And, I know I have high quality samples and everything. So it's definitely hard to get even like the lower paying jobs that are like $5, $10. Like I couldn't even land one of those. So it's definitely hard to even start. You gotta have a lucky break.
No doubt. And like, you just have to exhaust every avenue. And even if you resort to, door dashing or Instacarting to keep you afloat when you're not getting the hits, it's like, it can, again, you're right. And if you don't get that one hit, it can feel like, oh, I'm never going to break into this. And that's where like sometimes, you do have to do the freelancing with the full-time job to set yourself up for it. Because when I think about it, I would have never gotten into freelancing if I wasn't, I was working freelance work at my job. Like that's just what I sat at the desk and I traveled like every weekend. So during the week, I didn't have that much work to do. So I was like, all right, I'll come into the office and work on freelance work. Mm-hmm. But not every job allows that. So you do have to do some serious grinding. If you have a job that doesn't allow that, you have to be like, all right, I'm working my 7 or 8 hours today. And then somehow I have to carve out 2 to 3 hours to work on, God forbid, work on portfolio work just to try and land a job. That's where it's like, that's where you want to try and find portfolio work that you're actually inspired by. So like sports writing was great for me, but sometimes sports writing is not going to cut it. And they're going to be like, yo, let me see an example of your copywriting skills. And it's like, fuck, I'm going to have to go write a copywriting piece for no pay, for nothing, just so I can potentially get this job,
Right.
That's kind of, difficult on the brain to get yourself to put your best work into something that you're like, well, this is just my essentially trial to get, like, I should be getting paid to do this trial, but like I've selected a path that's not going to get me paid, but I still have to write. So it's like, that's when it separates if you really want to do it from when you don't want to do it.
Yeah. And it's shitty too. Like it's good that you mentioned that whole, like when they want you to like send in a sample before you even get the job. It's not directly related, or not entirely the same thing, but like I had seen listings on Upwork that were like, I need voiceovers for my NFL YouTube channel. And I'm like, I love football. I want to do voiceovers. And then they have the link and they're like, you must have a voice exactly similar to this one. And then it's either like some guy that I sound nothing like, or some guy with the lowest voice and he sounds like he's and you're like, dude, I can't do that, man. Like I can give you a really good voiceover. I'm passionate about the subject, but I don't sound like that guy, like that's soul crushing sometimes.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's also when you can kind of just be like, all right, I know the posting says this, but I'm just going to apply anyways and do it my way. Cause you never know when somebody's like, it needs to sound this way. And then they hear your voice and you're like, that's kind of better than the other way.
Yeah. And the other con I had was just the dry spells in the work. You run into times, like you said, where like you don't have that constant flow, and that could definitely hurt your pockets.
No doubt about it. And I mean, again, that's where you got to find stuff to supplement it with, whether it's going to DoorDash, whether it's picking up a shitty part-time job that's not going to be difficult to get, but it's not by any means fulfilling work. So it's like, you just got to fill those dry spells with some sort of not even regular, just some sort of way to make money.
Like a safety net.
Yeah, safety net, but definitely not, almost like a last resort. Because I always think a safety net's like keeping you from doing your best work, but you also don't literally want to be homeless. So it's like the last resort, you know?
Yeah.
When you need to pay your bills, then you can take that random job. But I think for me, the one thing that I do just want to say is like, and I don't want to come off, you know, selfish or bitter by saying this, but a lot of people struggle to this isn't like totally related to the dry spell so much as the time portion of time and responsibilities, I think. Because another con would be you have too many responsibilities and not enough time to try freelancing.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people be like, you need a real job. Like people who are either raised in the times of there is no other option, or people who, you know, really can't open their mind to what freelancing is. But a lot of it's just like, hey, you know what? You can't, because you chose to have, you know, responsibilities like a house and kids and a wife, and you want to, you know, you want to work on your backyard, you want to build the house, like whatever your hobbies are outside of work. It's like, yeah, if you have responsibilities that cost a lot of money, you're not going to be able to take the leap unless you have like serious connections or like a deep, you know, resume of work within the field that you can sell to people. But like for me, I have a girlfriend who understands. I have a dog who goes with it, and like fortunately he's a pretty inexpensive dog and relatively healthy, and like I live a pretty bare minimum life, and I don't do a lot of crazy things and spend a lot of crazy money. And, you know, that's the life that I enjoy. Mm-hmm. But if it's not for you, it's not for you. But you also can't just sit there and be like, oh, that's crazy to even consider it. It's like, dude, we're not working in steel factories anymore. Yeah. Like nobody's working 12-hour shifts at the steel factory. And if you are, like, you should.
Good for you.
Here's a wake-up call. Get out of that. Like there are ways to get out of that, but I also understand it's like it is difficult for someone who doesn't have a niche, you know, kind of skill. It's tough for just someone with no direction. Like if you don't have, I guess that's the other negative. If you don't have a direction, it's tough to get into.
Yeah, for sure. I'm really glad that you brought that up, though, because those were my two wrapping points that kind of tie together to sum up the whole freelance thing. Is like I wrote down on my notes, like job loyalty. For those who can see with their ears, I'm doing air quotes. Job loyalty and like careers are not what they used to be 30, 50 years ago, maybe even 20 years ago, like in the 90s. You know, a lot of people, like you said, would have these long, you know, 20, 30, 40, 50 year careers that they'd be in where they just did the same. Maybe they got a promotion here and there, but for the most part, they did the same thing for the same company for however many years. And those are the types of people I think you run into who have an issue with the unorthodox work and the freelance work where it's like, go get a real job, you know, and I don't know, man. It's different. It's a different time, and I think a lot of people need to realize that there has been a shift in the world and even in America as a whole. And I think going back to my first point earlier, you know, and like I want the disclaimer to be out there because I know I probably have family listening to this, or maybe someone random who has a completely opposite opinion is listening to this. Like, I'm not saying I don't want to go to work, you know, like I like having something to do throughout the week. When I was unemployed in between warehousing and baking, I got bored after being home for a month, you know, like I don't like just not doing anything. I like having something to do that's constructive and that I get paid for. But at the same time, there's this toxic culture throughout America with the workplace where it's either get a real job, go work 40 hours or 50 hours, you know, you gotta, you know, that's the only way to live. That's the only way to succeed in life. And I think it's bullshit too, because we have this toxic culture within the workplace where it's like, if you're not willing to overextend yourself and overstay, give your time even more. Like I've worked at plenty of places where it's like every day they were asking, can you do overtime today? And I was like, no, I can't. I have a life outside of work. Or, you know, I kind of had to set the standard of like, I leave when I'm supposed to leave.
In the office setting and like in a place where, you know, you're not hourly, but your salary, there's other ways that they get you on that where it's like, one of my biggest pet peeves is unlimited paid time off, because my experience with unlimited paid time off is that you never get to take it because you're always working. They're like, they offer you that unlimited paid time off, but then if you take any time off, you're working twice to three times as long on the days before and after to cover for that. Plus, you have to be available for emergency situations, even with your time off. So can your brain ever shut down? And it's really just like crazy. Like I literally, anytime I see that, I'm just like, I wouldn't even think of working there, because that's not going to be real time off. It's just kind of like pushing you. And then the other, I guess the flip side with the, freedom to take time off whenever, time tracking drives me absolutely insane. I had a big problem at my one job with like micromanaging time. Like my time tracking wasn't 100% accurate in terms of, I was working on something, but I didn't specify when I changed over to this and blah, blah, blah. Like it's, if you're going to have somebody track their time task by task all day, that is literally a job in itself. Like an hour to 2 hours a day are going to go to tracking my time properly,
Yeah. It's just shitty how I hate to keep using the term, but how the culture of the American workplace is nowadays. And I think that's why a lot of people are trying to shift out of it. Again, like my end goal is to like have a small like safety net part-time job that's a consistent flow of income throughout the week while I'm doing some sort of freelancing, voiceovers, music, what have you or what have you not. Maybe the podcast gets monetized at some point. So like as a disclaimer for anyone who's listening to this, I'm not a person who just wants to sit on my ass at home all day and do nothing. That is not who I am.
I would just argue, no way in hell would I say, I like to work. I guess that's where I can't get myself to say that anymore, because if it were like the ultimate goal is to get something in the music or photo, like kind of a combination of music, photo, all that stuff. But I'm not like, if I was given, the opportunity to just sit around and work on music and writing, hell yeah, I would take that. So to anybody who's like, oh, you gotta like, I work because I have to get enough money to do what I want to do. But if I had the opportunity to just work towards what I wanted to do without having to, absolutely, like to have a job just to have a job because that's part of life, I say fuck that. Like if I can figure out a different way to do it, I'm going to figure out a different way to do it. It just takes a lot of work and different standards. Like one piece of advice I have is just to surround yourself with people who are thinking alike in terms of you can do this. Cause like there are times when, you want to have the other side, like you want to have both sides there to balance you out. But when it comes to freelancing or working towards something you really believe in, any sort of negative energy from someone that you consider close or that you care for is going to be double debilitating on your energy. And it's just like, it's going to derail you from your progress. The only way to succeed in what you want to do is to surround yourself with people who are working towards the same goals.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. Damn, dude, that's a great, I don't want to call it a wrapping point, but that's a great way of putting it.
That's just what I've done since leaving my full-time job. It's been a slow departure from the traditional world. And the people that remain close to me from, it sounds weird to say, but the people that remain close to me from my time in the traditional world have either listened to me talk about it or seen how I am when I'm both in and out of that world and understand it. And like, I wish that I had this mindset way long ago, but you can, dwell on the past. That does nothing for you. The people who really care about you are going to listen, and, as long as you portray it correctly, like you can't go off being like, yo, I'm going to sit around and just hope my music pops off.
Hell
it's like, no, here's all the things I'm doing to try and get there. And here's all the things you just have to be surrounded by people who are like, yes, you can do that. Cause anybody who's like, really, you're still working on that music stuff, or really you're trying to get into writing. It's like that comment can knock you down for days, and it's not worth.
Yeah. And I think that's definitely, I've gone through that with the podcast, and I feel like a lot of people not a lot of people, but people within my circle have viewed this as like, they think it's just a hobby for me. They don't really understand that like I love doing this. Like having these conversations with you, with Aaron, with Tommy, with you know, the crossovers I've done, everyone that's been on, I love doing this. I love talking to people. I love to talk because it's fun and you learn. That's how you learn, is by making these connections with people and sharing your stories, right? And the editing, I love as excruciating as it can be sometimes, like editing. I enjoy that. I enjoy writing the jingles. Like, people don't understand this isn't just a hobby for me. It's become like a lifestyle, and I'm trying to make this a form of income for myself. And like, I feel like people look at it as, oh, you just do this as a hobby, and that's not what it is at this point, you know. Or people are like, oh, like podcast, you just want to do another podcast with me, and I'm like, no, it's because like I love doing this. And a lot of times when I reach out to people too, it's because they've been a phenomenal guest in the past, and I'm like, come back on. Like, I loved doing that with you. People enjoyed that episode. So it's like, yeah, it's shitty when you get people that knock you down a peg, and it's like they just don't get it, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And I think maybe to cover up the, oh, well, you can't just have everybody on your side, it's like it also helps to have someone who believes in you but will give you the feedback that you need. Like,
yep.
You can't have everybody being like, oh, your songs
kissing
are great,
your
you're
ass,
awesome,
your ass,
every
yeah.
episode's fucking phenomenal, man. It's like,
yeah,
you need, so as long as it's like helpful criticism, like it also doesn't help to be like, that fucking sucks, what about it sucks, I don't know, it just sucks. It's like, no, point out what it is. But like, for example, the podcast for you, you're working on voiceovers, you're working on editing, you're tossing music in there, you have some writing. It's like, you're starting a newsletter, which is a form of marketing for writing. It's like you're building your own skill set. Like, this is your portfolio that can eventually turn into more than a portfolio. And it's the same thing with so many other things. But again, people aren't going to, buy into it if their mind is just locked on, there's only one way to make money, and that is one full-time job,
working as many hours as they want you to. That's a huge issue with me. I'm going to be done talking about this shit in a minute, but just like I said, I set my boundaries whenever I work somewhere. And I know there's people that are like, well, if you have to do overtime, just fucking do it, it's money. And I'm like, yeah, but money to me is not worth my mental, like, burning myself out, my mental sanity. Like, I do my 8 hours or my 8.5 hours, whatever it is, and I'm done. And I set that standard. Early on, and I'm like, look, guys, I leave when I'm supposed to. I think like, I don't pick up a lot of extra shifts, really. I know when I was single, I didn't really have too much going on. So, like, if my manager at Giant was like, hey, you want to work an extra day? I'd be like, sure, I don't have anything going on right now, But it's hard when you get, like, that relationship. And I didn't even have the podcast when I was single yet either. Like, I started that shortly before I met Kayla. So it was like, now it's like with the podcast, it's time consuming. You have a relationship, you got to have the energy and the time to put into, and any of the other outlets, So it's like,
man. And I would say, even where you're at right now, if you were single right now, you would fill that time with creative stuff. You wouldn't ask for more work. And it's, this is kind of along the same category as mental health and a lot of other things, where it's like, we have it so ingrained in our brains. People have told us, whether it's society or directly, like, don't show it, like, don't let people know when you're down, or oh, full-time jobs, you can't do anything else but this. And it's like, even as someone who wants to do freelancing, it takes reflection to be like, wait, you're starting to panic because you don't have a job, because that's what you want to do, but also people have told you need a job. So, like, for example, I took this part-time job, 20 hours a week. Doesn't sound like too much, but it just wasn't flexible enough hours wise that I could, get my work done and do everything else that I wanted to do. And really, going into taking the job, I knew that I didn't want it. The only reason I took it was like, oh, I don't have a regular steady gig right now, so I'll take this one. And that just derailed everything I was trying to do, because it was like, and I wasn't even getting good work done there. It was like, I was only there for a week plus, and it was like, the whole time I was sitting there freaking out about how I'm going to die before I do something that I want to do. And it's like, that's the kind of thoughts you have where it's like, oh, maybe just freelancing and having a little less money but more freedom is so much better for you if you're literally thinking about dying at a job. Because it's like I was, and that's, you know, not everybody gets to that point, but I literally was like in one of those mental, you know, gray areas where I was like, I think I like envisioned the window was a sunroof of my casket, and I was like, I wrote down a little poem, and I was like, oh wow, like
Yeah.
this is not good. I should get out of this. And that's kind of where it helps to have people who understand and believe in you, who are like, yeah, Pete, get out of that, instead of like, well, you kind of need that, you know. So it's like,
yeah. And I think a big thing, and we'll wrap up after this, I think a big thing that sucks is, you know, social media being as big and as big of a time suck as it is in the modern world. Because it's funny, I just did a meditation through the Shine app the other day, where they talked about, you know, like how every time you open up social media, all you see is other people living their best lives. And I'm not saying that, you know, I don't know, I've never lived my best life, but like when you open it up and you see people and it's like they're either traveling or their band is doing really well and they have all this support and they gain followers so easily. And, you know, it's like when you're sitting there and you're chugging along, you know, making posts and episodes and songs and poems and pieces every single week, and you're grinding out the time and you're not seeing the results you want, that can be really frustrating. Is like when you start to compare yourself to those other poets, bands, artists online, and it's like it sucks because the only way to really promote yourself anymore is online through social media. But I don't know, man. It's,
I mean, with especially, and I guess this is off freelance more and back to music and art and stuff. But like in that sense, it is so difficult, so difficult to not look at other people and be like, what the fuck is wrong with me? But if you look at it from the other side, it's like the amount of work that they like for a musician in particular, the amount of work they put in to get that kind of traction, you didn't see on their page because they've been behind the scenes doing it. So all you can do in your control is to put in that work. And if something good comes of it, great. If not, at least you enjoyed the journey, right? It's better to enjoy the journey of trying to get there versus just being like, here's my desk, here's my Excel spreadsheet. I will go home and watch Netflix tonight, go to sleep, and eventually die. It's like, it's better than that.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to bring it up, because you know, I've definitely had those moments this year even where I'm like, I'm gonna die at a shitty job and having all of my efforts within my arts go to nothing. I've totally been there, dude, like as early as or as close as this year, like been there. I'm there right now when we're recording this.
I mean, yeah, to anybody listening, please know Matt and I have a connection where we know when each other is down. So don't worry if either of us are down, we at least have each other to pick each other back up. Just in terms of like another side of the conversation is small wins. Like it's so easy to get caught up in, I don't have any major successes, I don't have a hit album, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, but like 3 people really like this poem I wrote and now are following me on Instagram. And like, yeah, it's only 3 followers, but that's 3 people who actually think you're kicking ass. And it just takes consistency and putting stuff out there to continue to generate that kind of buzz. And then, you know, eventually you either have a small dedicated following or you blow up or you decide something else is for you. But at least in this time and place, putting the effort out there and trying to make it work, you know, is so much better than just giving up altogether.
Right. Hell yeah. I think we covered a lot today. I think that's a good spot to wrap up on. I guess the big synopsis of the episode would just be get out of your comfort zone, do something you love, support. If you see people around you that are trying to do great things, support them, because and also don't be afraid to be honest with them. If maybe, like you said, you can't kiss someone's ass all the time and tell them, you know, they're doing phenomenal work all the time, because, you know, the only way to grow is to make mistakes or have duds here and there. good talk today, Pete. Always good talks with Pete.
Heck yeah, man.
Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. If you did, give us a follow here on SoundCloud. Check us out. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Buy some merch. Sign up for the email newsletter. Really appreciate all your support. So tune in 2 weeks, I believe, is the next episode. And drink it while it's hot, everyone.